Now, guys, I'm gonna lift my arms like we practiced this morning, and you're gonna do a really loud applause so the people outside think something really great happened. And then maybe laugh so they get like the FOMO. Oh God, we missed something. Are you ready? And we go, yes, let's go, let's go, let's go! Woo! And we continue! A little note for the speakers. If you go over time, I will bring a needle and pop a balloon. And you will panic. And then you know you need to get off the stage. Just to add a little pressure. We go into act number 2 about beauty and betterness. Act 2 starts in 3, 2, 1. Go!
Act 2. Let's talk about beauty and betterness. On design that outsmarts scarcity and excess, breaks down cultural barriers, and infuses betterness. Ervin Latimmier, fashion and print designer, founder of Latimmier. Besides running his ready-to-wear brand, Latimmier, Ervin lectures and consults on the intersections of anti-racist practices, fashion, queer culture, and masculinity. He is also active in cultural initiatives in Finland.
Hi. Right off the bat, maybe I should ask the producers, could I have that introduction to use on dating apps, etc.? I would love if I get like a match and I could just drop that in there. Cool. We can kind of skip this. I think you said the most important things. So I'm talking about fashion's potential for change and fashion's kind of power for change today. And usually when people in fashion are talking about change, they're trying to sell you something. So rest assured, there's not a QR code attached to this presentation. You're not going to get a discount of anything. In the beginning of this presentation, I'll kind of argue about the power that we fashion designers have in our profession, and also about certain responsibilities that are related to that power. Afterwards, I'll kind of explain my approach to fashion design, particularly how I approach gender in fashion. And then I'll show a case of a project that I did where I think I utilized the power that I was given in a way to enact change in my country, Finland. Let's dive right into the deep end. I have a bit of a background in lecturing, so this might feel like a lecture. You can go and get credits from Aalto University after this if you want. So art, and by extension fashion, shapes our conception of ourselves, each other, and the world around us. And it helps us understand complex concepts like humanity, Nordicness, love, gender, and so on. So through fashion, for example, me as a fashion designer, in my collections, I can sort of create these stories and help myself and others around me understand these complex things. And when I'm creating a collection, when I'm sort of creating this new creative entity, I'm not just mirroring the reality around me. I'm not just interpreting what's going on. I'm always giving a proposal about a new reality. I'm always producing a new reality, a new vision. And when doing that, when, for example, creating a fashion collection, that's not somehow magically detached from the real world. So when creating these new realities, I'm always also carrying norms within that. So it is quite impossible for us, I think, to create anything without carrying norms from the real world. And as you may know, norms are common standards within the social group, regarding socially acceptable, appropriate, and expected behavior in particular social situations. And norms You might have norms in your country, you might have certain norms in your workplace, you might have certain norms within your family, friend group, and so on and so on. And norms can create structural social barriers for those who are left outside the norm. And fashion is, and particularly historically, has been a great tool to make clear who is included in a norm and who should be left outside the norm. And if we look historically, for example, at the fashion image, who we see in campaigns and so on, there is a clear message, usually, of who we imagine as this dream person, who we see in this sort of new reality. It's usually a thin person, it's usually, historically, at least speaking for my country of Finland, usually a white person, cisgendered, abled, young, and so on and so on. And yeah, as I said, so these norms may regard gender or gender expression, sexuality, body size and shape, ethnicity, culture and religion, or class. And I like to use Billie Eilish as an example, just because it's someone who, even if you're not at all interested in fashion, you usually can kind of understand. So her way of dressing, especially earlier in her career, was sort of very unnormative for what we usually expect from a female pop artist or a popular artist. Baggy clothes, not showing feminine figures. There was a lot of discussion about it. Does it have something to do with black culture and so on and so on? But what she has said herself, that it is basically about modest dressing. She wanted, as an artist, to hide her body from being sexualized, from being perceived in a sexual way in a context, especially as a young woman with her popularity. And then, of course, when she finally wore something that is a bit more form-fitting and showing the body, you know, we're criticizing her for being like a letdown, for being a sellout, that's the word, for kind of changing the way that she wants to be. And of course, I mean, Taylor told us time the impossibility of being a woman in the world. But we'll have a whole other festival about that topic some other time, right? So this is a question that I like to ask. So as fashion designers, should we unravel or enforce norms? And not just as fashion designers, I'm speaking here today as creatives in general. I think this is an important question for us to ask ourselves. Should we enforce or unravel norms? My approach, it was mentioned earlier, I focus on one of my interests as a designer is questions of gender, and my brand Latimmier focuses on the performance of masculinity. So we try to challenge both who can present masculinity and what type of clothing you can use to do that. And that's my way of saying that, yes, I'm interested in menswear, but I don't really care what the gender of the user of the garments is. And I kind of have found this approach through ballroom scene. This is a picture from 2016 when I was living in New York, visiting finally a ball for the first time. Those of you who aren't aware, who for some reason haven't seen RuPaul's Drag Race or any of that, ballroom stems from the history of drag beauty pageants. So in the 60s, at this era of sort of social unrest in the US, we had the civil rights movement, the birth of the modern gay rights movement, and similarly within the queer community, drag queens kind of competing in these sort of drag beauty pageants. Black drag queens in particular realized that they're never going to win those competitions. They can never rise into these white beauty ideals, so they decided to arrange their own events, their own beauty competitions, their own sort of social gatherings. And this would then further develop into what we understand as the ballroom scene today, which are these sort of safe spaces for queer people of color to not just to be with their chosen families, but to also kind of be, as the quote over there says, be whatever you want to be. This is from a documentary called Paris is Burning from 1991 by Jenny Livingston. So these are spaces where queer people could kind of, through fashion, through performance, through dance, take identities that society wouldn't let them have and have fun with that, play with that. And I know you're all looking at the picture on the right and thinking, I don't remember that scene from Barbie, but it is actually me in drag, don't worry. So I do a little bit of drag myself, and part of this sort of path to me understanding what I want to use fashion for and how I'm approaching fashion design is through kind of being part of the scene, creating these events also locally in Helsinki, which, by the way, does have one of the oldest ballroom scenes in Europe. Through this scene, I would find the works of philosopher and gender studies scholar Judith Butler, academic Jose Esteban Munoz, his works on raising to, or one's ability to raise to this ideal of whiteness. Judith Butler, of course, writes about the gender as a performance, and also the works of Bell Hooks, a writer and essayist, who actually, kind of my introduction to her was her sort of critical essay towards this documentary that I mentioned earlier. So the case example that I want to talk about is this Young Designer of the Year award that I won in 2020. It is specifically for fashion designers. How the competition works is that I don't know why, but some of the pictures are not showing there, which might make this challenging. Okay, that's fine. This doesn't have, but it's fine. We'll survive. So how that competition works is that they give a task, and then you make a portfolio for the task, and then they decide the winner, and then you do the collection for the award. And for the year that I was applying, the task was to design garments that have multiple ways of being used. And I think they wanted like a very functional and utilitarian approach. So you make a vest that turns into a jacket, or you make a hat that turns into a trouser, or something like that. I decided that this could be an interesting opportunity to kind of explore fashion history, explore kind of how clothing is gendered. So I decided that this garment or collection that I'm designing that has multiple ways of being used, basically will have kind of like a spectrum. So you will start from one end, this sort of very historically masculine Western aesthetic from 40s and 50s, male aesthetic, and then so this sort of masculine aesthetic, and then on the other edge you have the sort of very traditional feminine aesthetic. And basically the garments you could somehow unravel them, pick them apart, put them back together again, so that you, as the wearer, can kind of place yourself between these sort of two ends of a spectrum that I've created. Basically taking the power from me as a designer, saying this is how you should wear this. You as the user are deciding this is the sort of version of these gender garments that I want to build. And most importantly, this is how, as a user, you are then deciding how the clothes will conform to your body, and not the other way around as it usually is. So it started from these very simple scribbles of like, okay, we might have something very traditionally masculine on one end and traditionally feminine on the other end, playing with stereotypes, and how can you mix them? So do we use buttons? Do we use zippers? How do you unravel them? And lacing sort of seemed like a very natural way that you could tie and untie things, put them back together. You don't need to be particularly skilled to be able to tie those laces together. And basically the collection ended up being this sort of it's really kind of one look that can become several different types of looks. And okay, the collection was designed. Part of winning this award was that they give you a bit of a budget to take pictures of the collection. And I realized that, okay, we are in this era where the fashion image might often be regarded even more important than the actual garments. And often you are now only seeing pictures of this collection that I'm about to show, so there's quite a lot of importance packed into the images that I want to take. So I realized that, okay, maybe this is an opportunity for me to challenge I'm the Young Designer of the Year in Finland. I can maybe challenge a little bit who I want to show in the picture, who is the Finnish person that I am showing in the images as the Young Designer of the Year. And not just who am I showing, but where are we? What kind of space are we occupying? So I would assume that most North European people have some sort of very strong connection to nature, and I would assume that, just as in Finland, maybe in other countries as well, in the Nordics, kind of nature is always very present in imagery. And in Finland, especially the Finnish forest is also always very present, almost like an archetype in the fashion image. So I chose this location. You can see this kind of like a wall over there. That's actually 3 trees that were growing next to each other that fell in a storm. So it's kind of, if you would look over that kind of wall, you would see 3 massive trees laying down next to each other. So it was kind of literally tearing open a spot in this sort of archetype of the Finnish fashion image, where I could then place these sort of seeds, place these sort of people who I envision in the Finland of today that I am living and seeing in my life. And not just who is showing in the image. I thought that, okay, they're giving me this budget to take these pictures, so maybe I can use this opportunity to also challenge who is behind the camera lens, who is taking the pictures, who is within that team. Often you would hear in Finland conversations that, oh yes, we want to hire photographers or stylists or makeup people who are from marginalized communities, but it's so difficult to find them, they don't exist, blah, blah, blah. This of course means that they're just not looking, or these people are not in the sort of natural social circles that they have in their life. So this was another thing that I kind of wanted to challenge with this opportunity that I had. The collection was then, because this was the pandemic times, usually the collection is kind of presented at this sort of fashion fair in Helsinki, but because of the pandemic, I was lucky enough to get this opportunity that we presented in this sort of installation, where then through, again, we added sound, we added text. I could again challenge, like in a sort of exhibition, a museum context, who is creating content for the Young Designer of the Year in Finland, this is all presented in the Finnish press as, you know, pinnacle of Finnish design, Finnishness now, yada, yada, yada. That's kind of like the subtext in everything. So what can I challenge over there? And luckily enough, the entity kind of turned out great, and I was asked to come and present the collection and a version of the installation at the Finnish Cultural Institute in Stockholm, Finlands Institutet, and kind of like a strange thing. I wasn't really expecting anything. I thought it's really nice. I get to show this work in Stockholm, show a new version of Finnishness in Stockholm, but kind of surprisingly, a big part of the exhibition over there was the Swedish press asking me questions like, so these are Finnish people. So this is what Finland looks like. And I'm like, yes, it is possible. A country like Finland, Finnish people can look like this. And it sounds very reductive when I say it here like that, but I kind of didn't realize how potent and how important that was, because it was spread quite a lot in the local press over there, this sort of idea of like, look at this Finnish designer. A Finnish designer can look at this and look at his friends. They can look like that. How great. And I'm laughing about it now, but actually it seemed to be a genuine surprise. These were professional people who were talking about my work. Usually when they had exhibitions at the Institute, they would have some sort of program over there, right? So we decided that, okay, again, I have an opportunity. Maybe we could use this is a moment to talk about some difficult things that we haven't really talked about publicly related to the subject matter. So we had the kind of first ever discussion between Finnish and Swedish fashion universities talking about diversity and inclusion in fashion schools in Sweden and Finland. First of its kind It was, 1 hour discussion. We didn't solve any issues or problems with that one discussion, but it was like a seed. It is a start, and it was a start for a conversation that I can still see is going on in the universities. I'm not claiming that I solved racism in Sweden and Finland, but if you think about the kind of what this project started as, me doing this Young Designer of the Year collection, I did not foresee that it could kind of lead into this opportunity that I then ended up having, which was a very, very genuine opportunity and a very genuine discussion that we had between professionals in Finland and Sweden. Later on, yes, again, versions of the installation were presented at kind of one of the largest fashion exhibitions in Finland at the Design Museum. Again, opportunities for me to talk about the matters at hand. And even now, if you come and visit Helsinki, at the Helsinki Art Museum, the picture on the right, there are some images on display of this collection. So quickly to recap, 1, all art and fashion carries norms. 2, as designers, we have great power to enforce or unravel these norms. And most importantly, 3, you have to choose to utilize that power. Change will not happen automatically. If it feels like it's happening automatically, it's because someone else is doing it for you. Thank you.
Hrefna Sigurðardóttir and Birta Brynjólfsdóttir, design duo Studio Flétta. Design Studio Flétta are the recipients of the Icelandic Design Awards for both product and installation of the year with Sigurðardóttir. The main pillars of their work are repurposing and the importance of local production. On the surface of their work, it is playful, but underneath, critical questions simmer.
Hi, my name is Birta. And my name is Hrefna. And together we run a design studio in Reykjavík called Flétta. And at Flétta we design products out of materials that otherwise would go to waste. And today we're going to tell you a bit about a few of our projects, and maybe tell you a bit about how we work. But first, how we started working together.
So we met here while studying product design at the Iceland University of the Arts. And that was in 2013. A year later, we started a project we called Hrefna, where we mapped industrial waste from local companies because both we wanted to really know what was in there in the trash cans, and we wanted to show people the value of these materials. So for a few years, we hosted some material markets and lectures and went into schools with workshops. But then, after doing this for a few years, we really wanted to use these materials ourselves and to show the value of the materials that are lying here in Iceland, that are maybe destined for being shipped abroad, for recycling or downcycling. So we founded Flétta in 2018. And this was one of our first projects that we did with Steinunni Halldórsdóttir, a fashion designer, and the Red Cross in Iceland. And we went there for a visit at the collection site of the Red Cross. And after having a lot of talks with Guðbjörg, that manages the collection center, we started diving in. What is really just going to waste? And that's, of course, the damaged clothes that can't be resold or donated. And jeans come in a lot. And they have holes and they have stains. And so Guðbjörg collected a lot of damaged items that were just meant for for downcycling. And that's really what we were interested in. What can we do? How can we work around these imperfections? So we decided to cut the jeans into strips and use the whole length of the jeans. And we made these floor rugs. And with the way that we used the materials, we could kind of hide these imperfections and create these floor rugs. And that is the heart of our studio today. We are always looking for ways to work with the materials that we collect from various companies or trash sites or however it goes.
Yes, and the next project we did was actually also, we kept on working with this textile from the Red Cross. A local craft and design store called Rammagerðin approached us to design a Christmas cat. And for those of you who don't know the story about the Icelandic Christmas cat, or jólakat, it is a giant black cat that eats every child that does not get a new piece of clothing before Christmas. And this, of course, produces a lot of waste. There's so many children's clothes that you have to discard of. So we, of course, with the insight from the Red Cross, knew that there's a lot of children's clothing that also goes for downcycling or even landfills. So we decided early on to work with this material to make the cat. And this project is a bit different from other projects that we do, because we, most of the time, don't know the final outcome. We just we choose a material that is a problem, and then we try to follow the material and somehow ask it what it wants to become, also in order to fully utilize what we have in our hands. But in this project, we were going to force the children's clothing into a cat. And this is the final outcome. But believe me, this was not easy to finalize somehow.
So it's an unconventional way to work for us. But we really wanted to make this work. So, so we're going to show you a few photos from our prototypes. And usually they are so shit and rough in every project, but this one really required some trust. So one day, Hrefna showed up with this at the studio.
And think about how valuable it is to be able to come to the studio with this and have a conversation that is, yes, there's something there. So we took the positive things out of this shitty, disturbing prototype and took it further. And it started to get a shape.
And then we moved a little bit further. There's some face and stuff.
And it's so, like, when we're working with these materials, it's such a thin line from being very shitty to being like a nice product. So you really have to believe in the process. But yeah, it started to be promising. So yeah.
And so there we really, something is happening.
Okay, it is possible.
And then we finally made it to the cat that we were happy with, and a final result. But in every project, we also tend to kind of learn a new craft to make these things possible, and to be able to make a few items. So
yeah, in this one we had to make a tool to be able to do it. This was probably the 5th version of the tool. And this one is like super nice, even though you don't see it.
Yeah. So we do a lot of fast work. And this is the inside of the cat. So we also got the wire hangers from the Red Cross, and that's also one of the things that they can't donate or
Piles up.
or yeah. So the clothes were tied around the wire, and everything just tied together. So you can also take it apart. And that's also something we are always thinking about. What happens next?
Yeah, and emotional value is a big factor when working with sustainability. And I think it is one of the reasons why we tend to make stories or try to make stories around our products. Because if the product is of an emotional value to you, you are less likely to throw it away and more likely to repair it and take good care of it. And this cat is like an extreme version of something of an emotional value, because it is made out of the children's, this cat, made out of the children's clothes of its owner. And this is actually something we have worked with more in our projects. And something we have done in our project Trophy, where we take old trophies and make new objects out of them. We both love going to thrift stores, and at some point we started seeing trophies popping up in the shelves, and it's of course like super interesting objects that are designed for a moment, like a huge moment in people's lives. And they are filled with so many stories, but somehow often end up in a storage room, and it's hard to find the right context after this huge moment where you win something. So we started collecting the trophies and taking them apart. And what we also really love is trying to do as little as we can, almost just taking this thing that was going to waste and putting it in a new context. So what we are doing with this project is the same, where I always feel like we're just working as like trophy makers. We're just rearranging the bits,
giving it some functionality. Right?
Yeah. And so we've made lights and lamps and tables, and this one is actually from the trophies of the athlete, and that is also something we've done a couple of times. And there was one woman that came with the trophies of her husband because she said, I don't want to see it in my house. But suddenly they started arguing about, he wanted to have the object in his office, but she wanted to have it in the living room. So it puts it in a new context. So there are, yeah, a few this is something we are always working on and developing further. And it turns out this piles up in sports clubs. So our studio is filled with trophies. People are both turning up to our door with their trophies and like throwing them in, and also sports clubs, they somehow end up there. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets a trophy. Except for us, we never got one.
Yeah, that's maybe why we had such fascination with strange objects. We also want to tell you about the project that we did in 2020 with Fólk Reykjavík. These are airbags, and so they are now pillows and cushions, but they are airbags from damaged cars. And Fólk Reykjavík invited us to a local car dealership, and there they wanted us to find some materials to make product out of. And as we always try to do, we found a material that had no pathway. So the textiles in damaged cars, they just go into landfills. And they were so surprising. And so we decided to start and collect them. And out came these beautiful pastel color textile with some lovely stitching as well. And we had to cut them out of the steering wheel, so a little hole was created in the back. And that is mostly what we did, to turn it into something new, to give it a new context. So we put a little string in the back and a handle and filled it up. And there they are. So right now, you can buy them filled and empty, so you can just use them to store your extra duvet or your winter coat or all your grandma's knitted sweaters or mittens. And we are also just so proud of how the production has been developed. So all the airbags are collected from European dealerships and washed in an economical laundromat. And then there's a socio-economic
non-profit that sues them.
Yeah. Yes. So we are really proud of this product.
Yeah, but today we are exhibiting our newest project in collaboration with Icelandic. They recently changed out their uniforms, and they really want the uniforms to have a good next destination. So they collected all the uniforms, and the collaboration with us is the first step in finding this nice path nice path for the uniforms. So, like in every project, we started mapping out the materials, and it's super nice. It's all like really nice woven materials and wool, and so we wanted to do something nice with it, and also like not change it too much, like always just following the shapes. And somehow a bag gave us the freedom to work with the shapes already there. So, for example, the hats are woolen hats, and we just take them and reshape them and put a zipper on. So we try to do as little as possible. This is from the process. And here is the outcome that you can see today. And there's opening at 6 in the next house, where you can see the bags that came out of this process. So we would be happy to see you there. But last year, during DesignMarch, we opened a pizza place where we felted wool pizzas for guests. You could choose a pizza from the menu, and we felted the pizza while you waited. And it is all from waste wool from the Icelandic wool industry, and it's a collaboration with the textile designer Írurari. So, and it was so fun last year that we couldn't resist doing it again this year. So tomorrow, between 2 and 5, we're going to have a pop-up pizza place as well here in Hrefna, where you can order a felted pizza from the menu or choose your favorite toppings. So we're just going to end this by showing you a video Studio Fry made for us last year from the event. So,
and in the beginning, you will see all the roughly 300 pizzas that we felted last year.
Yes. pítsu. Við erum með hérna margarítu, Hawaiian happiness, porter pítsu, Martin May, pepperoni. Eitthvað sem þið líst á?
Thank you.
Lisa Lapauw, stylist and art director, and Mous Lambrat, photographer. Lisa and Mous together create an exceptionally strong visual work. They are dedicated spokespeople for peace and human rights and commissioned by brands, films, and institutions alike. Their creations are an ode to humanity with mind-blowing visual statements defying stereotypes of all sorts and breaking down cultural barricades.
Hello.
Hi. Can I add something to the pizza thing?
Yeah.
Yesterday was like super crowded place where we were talking, and when she was talking about pizzas with waste, I was thinking like...
We were wondering like, what are they eating on this pizza?
Ah, you heard about the pizza.
We didn't know it was wool.
Yeah, we didn't know it was wool.
But it was food.
I was like, okay.
So.
Okay, so now you know, so you're not going to eat it tomorrow.
No.
Okay, that's good. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Bit overwhelmed, yeah.
You know, well, it's okay.
They're friendly.
It's a super friendly crowd, right? I think you should applaud to yourself, even. Okay, it's such a pleasure to have you here, Lisa and Mous. We have this habit in Iceland, only using the first name. So, you know, just take it's a gentle act.
Is it because all your last names are like very long?
Yeah, I guess.
Because for us it's like, we have to really focus on the last name. So you can use your first names.
Yeah. So we're going to help each other out here. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so. We have some amazing work that's going to run in the background. But maybe before we get into it, maybe it would be really nice to hear a little bit about your backgrounds. If you would, you can go as far back, as you like. You can choose a starting point. But, what's your journey been to being here?
Maybe I'll start at the studies and then how we got to styling. I mean, I'm a stylist, he's the photographer. I studied graphic design like a lot of people here, I think, and I got a job when I graduated, and I did one day in the office and they put me behind a computer, and at the end of the day I was like, no, I'm not gonna keep doing this. I missed when I was in art school, I missed the crafting and being able to make something with my hands. So I wanted to do fashion. My mom said no because it was too expensive. So I just started to do internships as a costume designer in movies. And then in a movie, you have to make everything credible. So if you notice a costume, like you didn't do a good job. So it had to be real and normal. So I wanted to do something more special. Mm-hmm. So I met Mous on a set. We were just like babies and starting to work, and he was assisting and I was just beginning, and we had the same urge to make something not super commercial, but like, yeah, more artistic. So that's how we started trying things out and failing and trying again, and people didn't understand us and they didn't understand the work. So we had to find, like, step by step, a crowd or an audience that appreciated the work. Mm-hmm. So that's my short introduction.
And Mous?
I will have to go a bit more back to give more perspective. Because we were also talking about walking over here. I don't know why we're talking about school. And I was not the best of students. I was like a dreamer, I think. I think now they have names for it, you know. ADD, I don't know, ADHD, I don't know. But for me, it was just, I was a dreamer, you know, like teachers talk, and after a minute, I was in my fantasy world, and so I did very poorly, like in school. And I remember, I think primary school, the end, there was like all the parents came in the back because it was the last report card. And we had to say, we had to tell them about our dream, what we actually wanted to be, or what we want to study. And I remember I was called to the front of the class, and I just said something. I was not even, I didn't say engineer or something. I just said something like, I want to do like marketing, or I don't know, just like a everyday normal thing, I guess. And he laughed so hard, and he was like pointing to the parents, like, you know, this guy with these grades, like, you know. And it kind of like crushed me at that point. So I was like, that was the first moment in my life that I was like, you know what? I'm gonna show you. Mm-hmm. And I think every person needs to have like these moments, you know. Mm-hmm. These, I will show you moments, you know, to just like to just prove what's inside of you, you know? And I started studying afterwards. I did more my best, not my hard best, but, you know, it's still like high school. High school is still like, we're still kids. I just want to play and have fun. So, and then that finished, and then all of a sudden it was like, okay, yeah, what should I do? Go to school, go to work, and I wanted to do something creative because I never heard of artistic or creativity or art. Like, my parents were first generation immigrants who came to Belgium, who had like one goal: food on the table, clothes on my kids' back, and go to school. And all of a sudden I came to the academy in Ghent, art school, and I was like, this is, felt like a church, you know. There were like people like spray painting things on the ground, this, and it was like something in a movie. I was like, okay, these are my people, you know. Mm-hmm. And these are like, I felt really connected to it. I studied interior design. It was really fun to do interior design, but I didn't, when I finished my studies, I had a job interview, job offers, but it didn't feel right, you know. So I didn't show up on my job interviews.
We did. We were bad employees.
So it was, I mean, the person obviously was very angry, and you know how, you know, a lot of us are. Artists can have like an ego, you know. You have to be honest about it. So I crushed his ego. So I went all the way. I decided to do photography because it's something that I was a pretty creative person, but I like to be creative all the time, you know, like as an architect or a designer, sometimes it takes too long for me, you know. Mm-hmm. I want to be creative right now. I want results by tonight. Yeah. So I started playing with photography. I went to assists, like all the way, like from bringing coffees. I started assisting. I met Lisa. Kind of fell in love with her. And then we were just so hungry, you know. And I think the hunger that you have is super important as a creative, you know. Like if you don't have that hunger of always thinking in a way, in a creative way, because when you think in a creative way, the links that you put between your things you see and your brain, it's different than the other people, you know? So it's like how a brain works is like you reference constantly things with your own imagination. That's why kids are geniuses. Like kids have, they were never taught to do this. It's like a reflex, you know, like they see certain things and they interpret it in their own universe. So I met Lisa, started doing photography, fashion photography. It went quite quick. Like I did magazines, this and that was amazing. And I have to think about the trophies that you guys were talking about. You get the trophies because you do all the magazines, but at some point the trophy doesn't mean that much anymore. So all of a sudden it was enough. It was not enough. It was something, I need something of my own.
So obviously you're not a 9-to-5 working class.
No.
So don't try to hire them. Apparently, they don't show up. but shall we look at some of your work? We can let it roll. Or maybe first some thoughts about how do you work? You know, is there a strategy? What are you trying to do?
I think, like we talked about it yesterday, is that whether we're aware of it or not, we try to make like an eye-pleasing image with a lot of colors, apparently. But it also, a lot of the times, it has a lot of layers in there because we live in this world, we tap in this world. There's a lot of issues in this world, like with humans and the planet and race and discrimination. So I think in almost every picture there's something pretty, but also something hidden. Like whether it's like body sizing, body shaming. In the next slide, this was an assigned project about clean water in Africa, in Kenya, where we were able to see like the problems around having clean water in a household, in a school, and then to be able to make an eye-pleasing picture that holds a message inside it. I think that's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
And how we try to work.
We kind of try to trick people into looking at your work, you know. We're lucky that we used to work in fashion photography, so I think we kind of know how to produce an image that looks good enough that people look at it. And we actually just steal their attention to actually look longer at the photos. And like that, just like to think about, for me personally, it's trying to find similarities with different worlds. Because, I mean, I grew up in a very traditional Moroccan household. So all these things that I grew up with are not the things that usually the people that I hang out with know, you know? So it's like putting these beautiful things together and showing things that we have in common, because, I mean, I can sit down with a random person here, and after 30 minutes of talking, we will find our common points, you know? These are our connecting points. And I think this is something very important, that you need to look for those points, because that's what connects us as people or interests, and we can obviously find a lot of similarities. We can also find a lot of differences, but it just depends on what you focus on, you know? So I try to focus on the positivity, you know, like use humor, like have fun, and it's like an image that creates an emotion it's proven that you will remember for a longer time. So my favorite emotion is laughter, humor, nostalgia. So these are all like components that I love to use in my work, and so people in these exhibitions, when they stand in front of an image, there's like 3-4 different people seeing different things, but they're still looking at the same image, and you hear them talk, and they have conversations, and it's these conversations that I actually do it for. This is like exactly the reason why,
The reason why you do it.
Yeah.
I also want to tell the audience that in a little while, you get the chance to ask questions. So there will be 2 mics. So start
Don't be
thinking.
shy.
Don't be shy. They asked for it. So.
I mean, out of experience, we saw that people that came to see us that know the work already have some questions, like very concrete questions. So we wanted to give the opportunity, like if somebody really wants to, because we only have 25 minutes, so you cannot, I mean, we can talk for 5 hours maybe if it's this format. But if you have some questions, you can. So feel free.
But it's just important, honestly, that, we're not perfect. Nothing ever works out like you want. We came also semi-prepared, if I'm being optimistic. But it's like also how we work, Sometimes we have an idea, and then we exactly execute that idea specifically. But most of the times, we actually have no idea what we're going to do, It's like you go to a place, you look around, you see like the things that you start recognizing more and more and more. Like, for example, the first day I was here, there's not a lot of people on the street. So it's very hard to see like what are the things that you see in Iceland more than once. And then it was like, okay, the noise of the tires.
Yeah.
And then I saw like 3, 4, 5 people walking with these bonus bags, yellow, and who look amazing. Like it was like yellow and pink, and I was like,
we Googled it. We went there.
I went to the closest one nearby just to get like bags, just to like, okay, if we do like some photos in Iceland, like this is.
Yeah, because for everybody, I think that lives here, it's just something that you don't even think about it, how unique it is. But for us, these are the first 2 things that we noticed. Like, what is it with these cars? They all have flat tires. Oh no, it's because of they have grip. And then we saw the bags of the supermarket, and so if we would do a picture of Iceland, maybe like in our style, I'm sure the bags would be somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And everybody would recognize it, and that's what we try to do with the pictures. Like if we go to a certain country, we find these cliche things that are stereotype, but not for you would never find this on Google, like what are the 10 most specific things from this country. But that's how we usually go. We go unprepared, but we dive into the local markets and try to find like somebody who can just take us somewhere, and then we find, like embroidery cushions from like this flea market, or like, if some slides back, like this BMW patches on the eyes. That was like something that people really use to fix holes in clothing. So, and then we buy these small things, we put them all out, and then we're like, okay, how can we make this into one picture? Because with the BMW, you see this African, very iconic jewelry. So, and those 2 things together kind of make a fusion of an authentic thing from a country mixed with a stereotype, something that every African will know because it's in their daily life.
Yeah.
And it makes them, it makes people laugh, because if we mention the bags from Bonus, everybody's like, do you like this? Like, this is nothing special, but for us it's like unique.
Yeah, and you mentioned stereotypes, and that's of course a very important aspect of your work, like how you're mixing worlds and breaking down sort of cultural barriers, perhaps, and norms and stereotypes, and showing other people a little bit along the lines of what Ervin was talking about earlier. But what about being an artist or being an artist duo in a commercial setting? Because now you work for a lot of brands and magazines and, different institutions. What's your strategy there? How do you feel about that?
I think honestly there is no right way to do things, and I think the faster people realize this within the creative world, I mean, I'm talking about me, like maybe a lot of people will be like disagreeing, but from my point of view, there is no right way to do something. It's just, it's the way you do it, and I think also the way you do it is what makes it, it's the only thing that will make it unique, because we all grew up like thinking we are all unique and everybody's special, but also not, because we digest a lot of the same things, We follow the same people, we get inspiration from the same people, and like at some point, it's like almost chewed up for us, It's like this woman, we were talking here yesterday, she was talking about intuition. Like trusting, getting back to learn intuition. She's amazing. And very genius. And it's like intuition, It's like, how do we get back to our purest form of intuition? Because a lot of our intuition is put there from the outside, like a lot of aspects coming from the outside. And I think the same thing with creativity. It's just, you need to unlearn a lot of things and to just think like, okay, do I like it because the outside world likes it, or do I like it because I really feel, that this is me?
Yeah, and I think if you talk about commercial work as a creative, it's not easy. Let's be honest about it. It's like if you're artistic, you want to be creative and artistic and special, but you have to make money also. So you have to be able, if you're not an artist selling your work for a lot of money in a gallery, you have to work for commercial clients. And I think if you find your DNA and your personal identity in your artistic work, there are commercial clients that can tap into that. And I think it's important to, even if it is commercial, you still feel like you're being honest with the work you make. Yeah. I mean, because if you don't, then you will never feel like true, you will feel like a sellout, I think. So it's a personal choice to work for brands that you are capitalistic, and Yeah. But we have to be honest about this. Every artist needs to make his money.
Absolutely.
So it's like my advantage is that I'm just the stylist. Like my name is not on a big like if I work on a project, I can hide behind him. So that's the thing about being a photographer or director. If you link your name to a commercial project, really have to be sure that it's like something that you can, get behind.
But it's the thing is like you saw the WhatsApp
That's
project.
a good example.
You want to go back?
Yeah.
I mean,
if you can.
I mean,
the other one with the call home. This one, these two.
So the whole idea is like WhatsApp reaches out and talked about connection, and belonging, and which is something that we all want. We all want to belong to something. We all want to belong to a group of people. This is the reason also why we dress how we dress. That's also the reason why a lot of us listen to the music that we listen to, and it's kind of a feeling of belonging, and talking about working for commercial clients is because I'm here also to talk to people that maybe are still looking for that, which direction they need to go into. And I feel like if you find your DNA or something personal that is yours, you become irreplaceable, This is like, because no one can do it like you do it. And this is, I think, very important why people should look for it. It's hard to find it, but it's really worth looking for it. And then at some point, I can promise you, like I swear to God, they will just come for you, because at some point they just see like what you do, and there's a consistency, and there's like enough work that they can understand who you are as a person or what you stand for. And then they will just come by themselves. Like all these brands, I never contacted any of these brands. It's just like, I focused more on like, okay, let's create, let's have fun, because waiting for clients is not the fun part, you know? So focus on the fun part.
Yeah.
And then they just come and get you, you know, for what you do. And actually, that work that you make with them is something that you can be proud of. You want to show it. You want to like, you know, this is what we did together, instead of doing something commercial and it's like, yeah, I did this, but I will never show it to anybody. It's like,
No, it doesn't
because
work.
if you are that kind of person, it's very hard to hear, but you're very replaceable. There's always a new generation coming. There's always a new generation coming that is cheaper than you, that can do exactly the same like you and stuff like that. So my goal is like, you know, go back home and cry for a little bit and just think like, how could I be just do that one thing that only I can do.
Yeah, you need to be stubborn also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have questions from the audience? Or is it the Nordic silence?
If there are
Yeah, there is a question over there on the right side. Do we have a mic here?
Thank God the microphone doesn't work.
If you go.
Hello.
Where are you?
Hi. First of all, just lovely work. It's really stunning.
Thank you.
I'm a bit interested in knowing like the effect that your work has, because like when I found it, I immediately felt how it shifted my stereotypes of the Orient, you could say. But like, do you feel a difference in how your work is perceived in the West and Morocco, for example?
100%. I think in first of all, I think people like us or me or we are like windows of worlds that people don't know, you know? And how the Western world sees my work is usually how I see Morocco, for example, you know? And I am a mix of both. I was born in Morocco, spent there like a lot of vacations there, but I grew up in Belgium, like a Belgian, you know, having hobbies, like listen to hip hop, like go play basketball, watching MTV. All these things affected me, but instead of like thinking, am I this person or am I this person? I'm like, isn't it obvious that if you put them together that you're actually stronger and better? So this is just my point of view of like how I am as a person in the West, growing up Moroccan. So in the West, they see it like as a window, like a peek in. And thank God it's like people like it. And people in Morocco see it the same way. They see also like a window to a Moroccan person born in Morocco growing up in Belgium, you know? And you have to know something about, I think it's almost all immigrants. When you do something and your people, like it doesn't sound right, but it's true. Your people feel connected to something that you do, and they feel represented, you get all the love in the world.
And then maybe related, so do you think like your upbringing would have been different or easier in some way if somebody else had done this like when you were young? Like, does your work, you think, affect immigrant children today in Belgium?
Of course,
yeah. I think that's the goal, because we did an exposition last summer in Brussels, the capital, and it was really like we pushed to get youth in there, like young people who don't go to a museum, who don't care about museums. It's like for elite people. And I think we succeeded, and that was the biggest achievement for us, to see young kids from Morocco, from African countries, like being proud of what they saw. Like they were saying to each other, like, oh, my father has a hat like this at home, and my sister also has a scarf like this. And it was like the first time that that we saw, that they were like super proud of, to see their heritage hanging on a wall of a museum. Like, now it matters, now it can be seen. Like, white people are coming to look at how my country looks. And so I hope so, that it's like he and me, together we can be like a role model make it easier for kids to accept who they are.
I walked a path that they still need to have to walk on, so it's obviously that I need to, show like the cheat codes, of how to survive in this world, to first of all to push the boundaries of like, okay, you're not two different things, you're one, because this is really hard growing up, like not knowing where you actually belong. And I think it's an obligation almost, like to show them the way and to make them actually proud of both of the sides they're coming from.
It is also a brave act of speaking out and speaking up, using your voice and expressing it through your work. I think I described your work as being an ode to humanity, because it's kind of, to me at least, it speaks like it goes over the whole range of everything, sort of feelings like you're talking about, and I think that is also I think that is also something you take from your work. And I know you didn't feel at ease. I did the introduction, describing you as dedicated or being spokespeople for peace and human rights, which is something that kind of emancipates from your work. But
I mean, we were very.
I was honored.
To have your work described like this.
I think art has been. How do you say it? Omschreven? Described as the reflection of times. Like, how could you be like a creative person or an artistic person if the events in the world don't hit you, like if you watch the news and obviously like a lot of shit happening, how could you go back to your studio or to your atelier where you design and brush that off like that, like nothing's actually happening. I mean, I'm still going to do that, I don't know, whatever project in the way that I actually thought I was going to do it before. For me, that changes everything. If I see something like that, I'm like, okay, how can I reflect this into my work? And even if it's a commercial work, I will still try. If they shut it down, I tried, and I'd rather be declined for something that I stand for than to not even try,
or to compromise.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important thing, because we all have platforms, and we became, a lot of people look up to every one of you, like, you don't know who you're inspiring, and I think it's really important to reflect that in your work also.
Do we have another question? We have space for at least, here's one.
Hi, hello, amazing work. I wonder, as I understand, aside of you work in the world of fashion, like commission work, and then you have your own projects. I would like to hear much more about how you approach these two sides, in the sense, not in the process, which was another question that I was going to do, but you already answered, like you have no idea and then it starts, but mainly for the ones that is mainly your own projects, or how can you instill your own questions that you have in the commission work and in your own initiatives for your personal projects. Thank you.
It's easier if it's personal work. You have no client, you have no, there's no limits, you can do whatever you want, but you have no budget. So it's like you have to find a way to finance this in your own time, hustle. I can't remember how many times we booked our own flights and just the two of us, asking people in the street to be our models, to trust us. But if it's commissioned work, I mean, it depends on the client, because sometimes you have like carte blanche, like we say, like you can do whatever you want, but you need to be sure that this client is behind. If they know your work, then they know what they can expect. So most of the clients that come to us are not shocked if we propose an idea, because, I mean, it would be sad if they tell us, like, we want you, but we don't really want your message.
But that's why signatures are important. If you have a signature kind of, or a DNA, or it's like people kind of almost expect, like not expect, but still like, okay, we need to be open for what they will propose. And that makes it much easier than if you only do commercial work and all of a sudden propose something like this, then it's, yeah, they will tell you this is not what we're actually looking for. But in a way, but this is again very personal, even the commercial work that I do, I always try to push it to like, after the project, I want these images to still have a life, you know? Because if you work for a client or you have a project for a client, how sad is it how like you put so much energy in it, you put so much time in it, you put so much money in it, and then the project is finished and it goes in the trash, you know? This is for me like the saddest way of spending your time, which everybody's saying time is our wealth, right? So I will always try to push to create something that also that we can still use, that can hang against the wall afterwards, or we can use it in an exhibition, or it could be in a gallery, or it could be like the things that we did in Kenya. We sold like posters to raise money also for the water projects, and it worked out, you know. It's like you said, like we're tricking people into we want them to invest or like donate money for a good cause, but you know how people are, they not always want to give like 100 euros or krona to just nothing. So we try to find a way to give them something in return, like a nice artwork that is affordable, that people, you know, it's a win-win. So I think even with commercial clients, there is a way to put the message in there on a aesthetically way.
One more question.
Just to clarify something, like for your personal projects, you just find an idea and go for it, or you have like some brainstorming?
Usually he's like the one that wakes up in the morning and is like, oh, I have to do something with, what is it lately? Kill Bill, like the movie.
I thought it's time to bring Kill Bill back, right?
Yeah. And we see coming it back.
And all of a sudden I'm sending her these images of, I'm seeing Kill Bill everywhere right now, like, you know. And
it's like a little seed is planted in his head, and then he's telling me, and then we talk about it, and we say, okay, how can we translate this into a picture, and then we have to find the timing to execute, which is also not easy.
I think it's you don't really control it. Like I think it's like being kids, you know. Like kids, you can't control when kids have ideas, you know. Like if a kid's bored, like if there were kids here and they were bored, they would transform this whole auditorium into, you know, Space Galaxy X7, and they will play around, and I think this is also that I believe it's really important to protect that inner child that we have, to not be distracted the whole time, because we are entertained 24/7. Like we are entertaining you right now. After there's a break, you will have your phone, and then you go back, you have a conversation, and then it's like the TV, and then it's like back to the computer, and then you go to sleep, and then there's like the little window of not being entertained. And I also believe that's why also a lot of people say like, yeah, my best ideas come before I go to sleep, because you're not distracted, you're not, you know. So I think you can train it to have ideas.
All right, so you can train. Again, we're back to the position, trying to get your foot back on the head that she was practicing. Oh, you didn't see that one? Oh, so that one. You have to tell a story again.
Yeah.
Basically, it was like she was doing, so our ringmaster was doing a circus school. And so she learned how to put her feet on her head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either she's very
And
flexible or...
She didn't believe she could do it, but they believed she could do it, and then she could.
Could she?
So
Could
she
she do
could?
it again?
We have
How
to
is
see.
this? Okay.
Let's finish
But
the talk with...
I think we're all getting hungry and ready for lunch.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But thank you so much for being here. It's a pleasure and an honor, and thanks for doing the work.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.